When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Welcome to the David Lynch podcast here on Anfield Index. These shows are syndicated episodes of podcasts also available on David's personal YouTube channel and Substack page. To sign up to David's brilliant Substack, please visit davidlynchllc.substack.com and be sure to follow David on Twitter at davidlynchllc.
So another late one for me tonight, and I stayed up to watch Liverpool beat Arsenal 2-1 in a friendly in Philadelphia. But I do think these pre-season games this season are worth staying up for, and that's because we get an opportunity to learn a little bit more about what an Arne Slot team or an Arne Slot Liverpool team will look like and how the squad fits into that. And I think in previous summers you could maybe say that pre-season results and even performances didn't really matter because you always knew under Jurgen Klopp that Liverpool were going to play in a certain way once the season started, and that generally they would turn it on and perform well in those seasons. I mean, I remember some pre-season results, some bad ones. He had a 4-0 defeat to Mainz one summer, a 3-0 defeat to Napoli, but in the end Liverpool, when the season started, they put it all together. But I think when you come into it with a new manager coming into the role, I think you need to see signs there, don't you? Some encouragement that the style of play, if it's slightly different, is coming together. And also, you know, getting wins on board can never really hurt. But I think more than the result, I think the performance has to be right. And even if that's not been important in the past, it definitely is this summer. And I will have to say, I think I've seen some encouragement from what we've seen from Liverpool so far this summer. And not just the win this evening, obviously beating Arsenal 2-1 is a decent result, even if it's in pre-season. But I think the performance in general had a lot to like about it as well. So I'm going to look at that element first, really. And I think the performance in general, what I liked most about it was that there was that slickness there, that sharpness in the passing. Now, we know that Arne Slot teams, maybe we're starting to learn anyway, that they may be a little bit more pass-heavy than Jurgen Klopp teams. And, you know, some of the passing back to front, as I say, was really slick tonight. Some really nice one-touch moves to get out through the Arsenal press. I mean, they are such a good side, aren't they, at putting pressure on you and making it difficult to play through them. I thought Liverpool did really, really well in that. Obviously, you have to throw the caveat in that maybe Arsenal's fitness and sharpness is not quite where it would be at the start of the season. But I think these two teams, fitness-wise, should be at a similar level at the moment. So to see Liverpool do that, I thought was really encouraging. And as I say, the passing and some of the moves they put together, particularly in that first half, before all the changes happened, I thought really, really encouraging from Liverpool. At this point in pre-season, they're clearly grasping what Arne Slot wants them to do. They're really getting a good idea of that. And some of the moves and the football that they put together were really good. And I think one of the things I liked about it as well was that, okay, we saw in the first friendly some of the passing out from the back and how intricate that was and slightly different to Jurgen Klopp football. But it made you worry a little bit that, okay, we're going to take a shift towards a more Guardiola-type style. Is that, you know, any of that sort of heavy metal football completely gone? But that's the reason I really, really liked the first goal from Liverpool tonight. I think it was 3 passes back to front from Quabin Kelleher into Jota, back to Harvey Elliott, and then through to Salah, and he finishes it off. Really, really direct football, which I think for Liverpool, I think they have to keep that element of their identity there. I think that's really important that they've still got that up the sleeve. Not least because, look, you have to be flexible in the way you can hurt teams or they find you much easier to defend. I think having multiple ways you can score goals will be always massively helpful when you come up against a Premier League defence, but also because I think direct football as well at times is what is really suited to Anfield. You know, when you get it's best on European nights, you want that atmosphere whipping up. Sometimes you need to be direct. You need to be 3 passes and you're in on goal, or, you know, sometimes even going long ball and really sort of putting it up the opposition. And I think we saw a little bit there that Arne Slot, yes, he's got this intricate football and he's got that up his locker, but there's also that sort of, you know, that direct football. They can play that, which I think, you know, if you can get those two things hand in hand, and you add in the Anfield atmosphere to that directness at times, and it really just ramps up and create, makes that kind of football really that's hard to play against, and I think makes for a good team really, and a good Liverpool team. So really, really encouraged by that. And I thought the move around the second goal was maybe more towards sort of Arne Slot football, as I mentioned. Really, that was a little dink over the top from Harvey Elliott, the patience that they showed in the build-up to the move, and Carvalho slotting it away really nicely. So loads of encouraging aspects, I thought, particularly in the on-the-ball performance, really. And as I say, against an Arsenal side who defend well, generally speaking, even if they're not quite at the sharpest at the moment, but also an Arsenal team that they weren't missing too many first-teamers in that first 11. Theirs was a much more familiar first 11 than the one Liverpool put out. So again, another encouraging element. And I want to talk about maybe the defensive elements of the game as well. I thought Liverpool really energetic in the press. They looked fit, which is really, really good and important. Obviously, the true test will be, can he sustain that fitness over a season? Because that has been a real problem in those latter Jurgen Klopp campaigns, hasn't it? Picking up injuries. But they did look really, really sharp in the press. And when they couldn't press and win the ball and they couldn't nick it high up, getting back into a really good shape that made it really difficult to play through. I mean, there was a couple of hairy moments, but aside from that, I thought Liverpool generally defended quite well. The goal they concede.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Was from a little bit of a deflection on a cross as well, so didn't do too badly around that situation. And as I say, I thought defensively against Betis they were quite good in terms of didn't give up very many chances, and that was something Slot talked about. Sort of similar today, Arsenal a little bit more threatening than Betis showed, but I thought, generally both sides of the ball, a lot to be encouraged by from Liverpool today in terms of the performance. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the selection now, and I think we are kind of learning something about what Arne Slot is looking towards in terms of his team selection, because I think in both the Betis game and this one, really, from the start, and the starting 11 that he went with was really kind of, it looked on paper like the strongest available 11 that he had, of the options that he had there. And I think what he's trying to do is kind of get a team that, get the team that's going to start, or as close to the team that's going to start against Ipswich, get them in rhythm, get them building relationships on the pitch, get them used to the idea of, for example, Mo Salah being in that sort of right wing position, cutting in, Harvey Elliott being the man who knows the first time ball's going to be there and going to be on. Get those relationships going, because I think there are some clear big hitters who are going to come into that team against Ipswich. I think it's going to be impossible to keep Van Dijk out, Trent, McAllister, even though they're all reporting late. You would expect them to be involved in that game, but I think what he's trying to do is get every other aspect of the team, every other player who is going to start, aside from those players that are going to come back in, get them on the pitch as much as possible, get them building those relationships, as I said, and that rhythm. So I think we're seeing some signs and some hints really about what that 11 would look like. For example, I mentioned Harvey Elliott there. I think he's been around for pre-season since the start. He's looking really, really sharp and looked really good today. Maybe he's going to be in that starting line. We know Salah is building those relationships. I thought Jarell Quansah, another one who's in real contention to be in the starting 11 there as well. So I think we're getting hints there about what this 11 that's going to face Ipswich is going to look like. And another aspect I wanted to talk about from the selection as well was the fact that, and it kind of relates to this really, with him going with his strongest 11, is that Wataru Endo wasn't in the starting 11. Now, again, he's been in pre-season since very early on. He didn't get involved in any international tournaments. Now, you think if he was going to be involved against Ipswich, he would be in and around that strongest 11. But he obviously wasn't today, and I just think it's further evidence, beyond the stories that we had this week about the fact that Liverpool have rejected a bid for him, but in my understanding are open to the idea of a stale. I think the idea that he wasn't in the team today maybe hints again that, he's not quite favoured by Arne Slot. He's probably not going to start that Ipswich game. He's not going to be a favoured defensive midfielder going into this season. And, again, my understanding that he hasn't quite convinced the manager yet. He's got work to do in terms of that, and I think that just really does open up the possibility. And I know a lot of supporters are big on this, is that Liverpool are going to sign a defensive midfielder in this transfer window. Now, still probably something to be resolved there around Endo, but again, the signs don't look good for him in terms of being a big part of Arne Slot's plans, and I think him not being in the side today, you don't want to read too much into a pre-season team selection, but I do think we are seeing hints from Arne Slot that Endo isn't favoured, and as I say, that very much aligns with my understanding. So I think an important and sort of interesting takeaway from today's game. Now, before I finish up, I just want to get into a couple of individual performances. I spoke about Harvey Elliott there. I thought he was phenomenal in this. Two assists, two very different assists as well. One that he fires in for Salah's goal is just a first-time pass, really low slide rule pass to put him in on goal, perfectly weighted, brilliant pass really. And then the second one, also sublime, a little chip over the top that Carvalho finishes off. And I just think, like I said, he's been in pre-season since early. He's really had a chance to impress the manager, and he's showing great things on both sides of the ball. His defensive work, his work rate, and his pressing has been fantastic as well. So, he's got every chance of doing what he finished last season in the team. He's got every chance of starting this one in the team. And if he performs in the way he did today, and as he has generally across pre-season, I think he's got a real chance of being a real fixture under Arne Slot, which is very exciting for him, and I think very exciting for supporters because he's got such quality, hasn't he? And he's obviously a Liverpool fan who will run through brick walls for you. So really, really impressed by his performance today. I thought Salah looked very, very sharp, having not really done so against Real Betis. Obviously, he's building up his fitness now. He's getting there, and he really did look sharp as attack. And obviously, he took his chance with, consummate cool. He's always like that, isn't he, in front of goal? But he looked really, really good today, which again is encouraging. Following on from that Betis performance, thought Quansah was fantastic. A really brilliant last-ditch sliding challenge in the first half that prevented a goal, and just generally great composure in his defending, brilliant on the ball as usual. And again, he's had that full pre-season. He's got a real shout there of getting in ahead of Canate when the season starts, and if you do that, you give yourself a chance to stay there. So I thought a really good performance from him. And also want to mention Diogo Jota, big role in the first goal, looked really good in that number 9 position. He actually hit the post as well. Unfortunate in that situation. He usually bags when you get him anywhere near the goal, doesn't he? So he's a great finisher. So, and I just thought he looked really, really sharp. He only got 45 minutes today, but a really good outing for him. And interesting, he was in that number 9 position. Are we going to see him start the season there? Darwin Núñez only coming back late. Obviously, his form has been up and down as well over the last couple of seasons for Liverpool. Will Jota maybe start that season as a the number 9 and the guaranteed source of goals? Really interesting to see where Slot sees him finally ending up in his system, and if he's a guaranteed starter, which I think he should be because he's a guaranteed source of goals. But I thought a really good run out for him, and obviously more to come from him because he just needs to build up that sharpness now and get himself ready for the season. But I think other bonuses, of course, no injuries as far as we know after the game, which is really good and probably the main positive. Always good to get a win against a Premier League team as well, and 2 wins from 2 in the games that we've all seen as well from Arne Slot. So really encouraging on that front. And as I say, a really good performance as well, which is most important. Clearly these players are getting sharper. They're getting more used to the football that they're being asked to play, and they're really encouraging signs as we get an edge a little bit closer to the season. But of course, there's a game against Manchester United to come up next, and of course I'll be covering that. So if you want to be across that, please do subscribe to the channel to keep across that. And of course the transfer updates that are yet to come, because we're heading into August now. Richard Hughes promised it'd be busy, and we're starting to hear more rumours, aren't we? Things are really starting to ramp up. So I'm sure I'll be coming up with more transfer updates in the next couple of weeks or so. So if you want to be across those, do make sure you subscribe. And if you can like the video, always massively helpful as well. And as I say, lots more to come from pre-season in terms of transfers as well. So I'm sure I'll see you guys very soon.
Sports Social Podcast Network.